Hey everybody, welcome to Church History for Chumps. My name is John Simon. I'm here with Taylor Orange Treadway and the biggest Zach Brand band in the world, Thomas Duell. How we doing, guys?
Okay, before we hit record, I found out that they didn't know the song Orange, Something in the Orange by Zach
Wait,
Bryan.
it's not even called Orange? You didn't even give us the right title.
It didn't matter. You didn't know as 1.531
like, you ever heard the song?
streams.
You ever heard the song "Sunlight" by the Beatles? Oh, it's called "Here Comes the Sun." Well, it doesn't matter. You didn't even know what it was. Well, you're getting bad information.
You didn't know what it was.
I don't understand. Look, Taylor, I just didn't know you're so defensive about country western music, modern country western music.
I'm just shocked. How many words to Pink Pony Club do you know?
0.
Really?
Well, I don't even know what that song sounds way
How do
worse.
I am a troglodyte.
You're a bad person. That's why you know
I live
this
under
stuff.
a rock.
No, you live under a rock that plays country music on its speakers.
I listen to obscure Christian black metal and Dixieland jazz, borderline exclusively.
But
and
you
I
still
know
sing
these
along to
songs.
Garth Brooks when he comes on at the bar. That's the problem, dude.
Garth Brooks. Now we're talking.
I like Garth Brooks too, actually. Taylor, you need to baptize your iPod.
My iPod?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your music selection is unwholesome. And you're trying to project all that on us. I don't think that's fair.
Okay.
Me and Thomas used to talk about the Devil Wears Prada on here before you came along. Probably not good enough for you, though, right?
I even played some Devil Wears Prada one time.
Oh, that's
Devil Wears Prada.
This is the irony, is that a popular metalcore is too normie for you. Then you get mad at us for not knowing a song with 7 billion views. It's like, pick a lane, dog.
I know. I'm inconsistent, and I am happy with that.
Okay.
I will say this I will say this about music. I have a sickness. I love finding a band that I like and going, wow, they have 400 monthly listeners on Spotify. This is great. Like, it does something for me.
See, when I find a band that I like and I see they only have a few hundred monthly listeners, sometimes I think, what does everyone else know that I don't? maybe they're actually bad.
Nah, you found them. You found them, and they are great.
That's true. I think like 1,200's my sweet spot, especially if it's like a Christian, like obscure metal subgenre, like. Then I'm like, oh, this is good. This is hot. This is good.
Yeah, I'll do shout outs for Frost Harder and A Hill to Die Upon. There you go. If you're a metalhead, there you go.
Frost Harder?
Shout out.
Frost Harder and A Hill to Die Upon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
right.
Let's see. What was I listening to? We had a good discussion just for a couple minutes about like the nature of worship music. And it's funny that like that single few minutes of talking got way more traction from our listeners in the comment section than, I don't know, the hours of research that I put into our actual topic, which felt great.
Dude, I was listening back to that episode thinking, wow, John Simon did a massive amount of research.
I did too much. It was the equivalent of making a big like freaking pot roast and then only one person comes to the party. It's like, well, I got leftovers.
What have you been listening to recently, John?
Dude, I was listening to Demon Hunter earlier today.
Whoa.
And I feel like Demon Hunter.
Normie.
No. Here's the thing.
I respect them though.
I think they're like, they're like veterans in the world of Christian metal. And I don't think I like an album front to back from them, but they also have songs that I think hit notes, metaphysically speaking, that I can't see other bands doing. Like they're cool with the clean vocals. They've got melodies when they want to. I don't know. I like Demon Hunter, man. I don't know what else to say.
I respect anybody that has been in the game as long as they have and remain Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Skillet is also up there. I don't like their music, but I like them,
Yeah.
What about you, Tommy? What are you listening to?
I've been I got really mad a few months ago that nobody had forced me to listen to Coulter Wall.
Dude, I love Coulter Wall.
I like Coulter
Yeah.
Wall. Yeah.
I've been enjoying some Coulter
It's
Wall.
kind of
So I've been
bluegrassy,
listening to
right?
Coulter. Maybe some of it.
A little folk.
It's more like, I don't know. I'd describe it as like kind of like grungy folk country kind
Okay.
of like.
Okay.
I don't know. You see, it's you feel like you're listening to a much older country artist.
Yeah.
A little bit of outlaw country kind of feel sometimes, but I've been listening to Coulter Wall Radio, which has exposed me to like Billy Strings is another really cool
Dude,
artist.
Dust in a Baggie
Dust in a
is
Baggie is a great song.
a
Got
fantastic
20
song.
long years for some dust in a baggie.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good song. Very everybody that Billy Strings plays with, very talented. Um, and it's making me listen to some older stuff too, like some Johnny Cash
Very
and
nice.
Marty Robbins. And
Oh, brother. Come on.
yeah, I know.
I
Dude.
love
Yeah.
Marty
You like
Robbins,
Merle
dude.
Haggard?
Oh, come on. I like Merle
Sometimes,
Haggard.
yeah. This is one of my favorite like niche John facts is that like John really likes that outlaw country stuff. Like,
Dude, I'm like hip
man,
hop up front,
you and
country in the back.
yeah,
Yeah.
you and Rod would put on just like some country crooners on the
Dude,
Spotify.
if you randomly put on a 50s and 60s country playlist, you might find me singing along to every single song. Like I
like
just
that.
I love that stuff.
That's some
dude.
John lore I didn't know.
Yeah, this is like pre.
Where did that come from?
Oh shoot, that's a good question. I don't even remember honestly. I think every like genre binge that just started with one song that I couldn't get over, and I think it was Your Cheating Heart by Hank Williams. And I was like, this guy's voice is crazy. Like he just like slams you, and his songwriting is so catchy. So then I found a list of classic country albums, and one of them was 40 #1 country hits by Hank Williams. And the author of the article was like, it's long, but you're gonna love every single song. And I was like, here we go. And he was absolutely
Nice.
right. I freaking love it.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Look at old country.
I love me some little jambalaya and a crawfish pie. Me oh my oh.
That's right. Yeah. That's the one. That's like one of the top 3. That's like that one. What is it? Hey, good looking. What you got cooking? Yeah. But I love his sad stuff, bro. I love Cheating Hard. I love I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. Cold Cold Heart. Those are just like get to the bones, bro. But
John Simon's just rapid firing these off.
Dude,
you know it. I do.
Oh yeah. I know a lot of this stuff.
Anyway,
right.
I'm going to listen to 36 Chambers for the 400,000th time.
Honestly, I'll probably join you. Yeah.
All right.
Well, before we dive into this week's content, I have an announcement that won't be news to you guys, but news for our fans. I am evolving. I'm transcending to the third heaven of church history.
We're too small for him, you guys.
Metaphysics. Yeah. No, it's kind of a life update for me. Basically, I'm getting to the point where I can't devote the amount of time I want to the podcast, which is a bummer. I was just looking. We're 121 episodes in at the time of recording. We've been doing this for 3 years straight, and we've covered a lot of content. So we are going to do an episode soon where we just kind of like chew the fat and reminisce on maybe some of our favorite episodes and that sort of thing. But the podcast isn't ending, and I'm not actually going away. I'm just going to be here less. So I'm going to move from being a host of the podcast to a semi-regular contributor. So you will hear from me often throughout the year, but it'll be either for a very specific episode or maybe a mini series here and there. And John and Taylor will continue to be rapid firing stuff to you guys every single week. So I owe a great debt to our listeners. I feel like I don't even know how it's the algorithm, it's the internet that's exposed us to all of the people that like to listen to this podcast, and it's always really encouraging. And when we have somebody reach out who just listened to all of our content, and I'd like to think that they grew maybe a little bit in their understanding of church history, and it's been a good project for me, and it's not over. It's just going to greatly diminish from your perspective as a listener.
Okay, all right, and that is Tommy's last thing he'll ever say.
That's not true. That's not true.
Oh man,
Oh, man.
dude, you starting this with John, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of came in off the coattails of your guys' success. So,
Oh, dude, it's
I'm grateful.
crazy.
Well, you've really
'cause,
helped
like,
it grow, Taylor. I've been so thankful to have you on the pod.
Oh yeah. But I mean, dude, I've been thinking about this, especially since Tommy first shared this with the two of us. Like, it was such a lightning in a bottle moment that that Thomas and I were really close friends. I mean, we're still close friends, but we were just like, our circles were very, very tight at the time. We were going to school together, we were doing ministry together, and we both just had such a love, not just for church history, but for like the church itself. We just had such a love and a passion for the bride of Christ, and we just wanted to tell that story to people. And yeah, I mean, if that like text message to Thomas at that moment back in 2022 doesn't happen, then none of this happens. And so, like, yeah, dude, it's been such a sweet ride, and I'm so bummed, so freaking bummed. But I also know
now you're just stuck with me's.
Yeah, I know. Well, I got another couple months, and then I think I might be heading out too. I'm just joking.
Don't say that.
Joking. No. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling ready. But this is a blow.
Everybody
for sure.
just gets to listen to 45-minute monologues in Cockney for some reason.
Oi, governor.
Yeah. Dude, oh man.
Oh man.
It's his nervous crutch. He just has to talk.
That's right.
Cockney.
I just to get through it. Today we are going to be speaking on the.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So,
man.
anyways, we don't want to go on too long. We're gonna have more time to really, like Tommy said, just reflect. Especially, I want that to be especially a gift for those of you guys who have just been with us for a long time, because 120 episodes is, 3 years is a long time. So
here's what you guys can do starting now: is start dropping in the comments your favorite Tommy memories, or
that's
quotes.
good. Mm-hmm.
Or something, and be like give some love to Tommy.
Yeah, maybe what we'll do is when we start releasing merch, we'll have like a Thomas Duell shirt with like the wings protruding past his face, and it'll be a quote like I don't know, some kind of good Tommy quote. It'll be
You
like
gotta make me
2022,
look-
2026.
Man, hold on a second. I gotta grab a paper towel.
It's because he's crying. He's crying. No, it's because did he spill his adult beverage?
He's an emotionally intelligent man. Like, give him a chance.
I think he spilled his reformed adult beverage. Is I think what just happened.
All right. Well, we are going to be talking. We're kind of in our we finished the First Crusade. We went all the way from kind of setting the table up to the establishment of the Crusader states. So we've been kind of freestyling a little bit. We're going to be just kind of exploring some other topics to give us a little bit of a palate cleanser before we jump into Crusade Numero Dos. And so we're actually really psyched to have Thomas be leading this episode, and we're going to talk about a pretty significant key figure in medieval Europe as far as the history of the church and the development of Christian theology goes. So we're super psyched to talk about that. Did I give you time there, Thomas?
Yeah, it was good. You like my nervous crutch of just like spilling a beer to end the conversation? I'm like, oh crap, spill my beer.
I don't want to feel things.
It's all right. Thomas already knows my nervous crutch is to throw whatever I have in my hands half a football field away from me. See,
So
I knew
true.
you remembered it immediately as soon as I said it.
I'm forgetting like the exact details of what you did. It was bad, though.
We had met this. Okay, I swear, listener, I'm so sorry for going late.
Yeah.
We had met this freshman
looking at
from
this
the
book
U
the
of
other
A
day.
when we were both, this was a few years ago. We would go to this hookah bar at the U of A to drink coffee, smoke hookah, and then just do our seminary work. We met this dude named Ethan, who was a freshman, and we just
Who
strung
I
up a
bumped into
conversation with
about a
him.
couple months ago, by the way.
Did you really? Oh, that's
I
awesome, dude.
did.
Okay, I'm gonna
He
text you
ran
about
up to
that.
me on the disc golf course and he was like, "What's up?"
Dude, that is so awesome. I love that. But yeah, we just kind of got to know him and started teaching him about Jesus and stuff. And he started teaching us about David Foster Wallace. And he gave me a book. I think it was Concerning the Lobster. And I was flipping it around in my hands and just dropped it, swung my hand up to catch it, and just launched it across the parking
Spiked it
lot.
right into the parking
Just
lot.
looked like I had freaking, I don't know, Tourette's of the arms for like a split second. But anyways, all right, we're 15 minutes in. Listeners, I'm sorry.
Let's go.
Let's get rolling. We're on St. Anselm today, boys. Let's run it.
Anselm, all I have for the cold open is a quote. And I do not seek to understand that I may believe, but believe that I might understand. For this too I believe, since unless I first believe, I shall not understand. St. Anselm.
Mm.
Anselm is a really cool figure in church history who, honestly, I didn't know a lot about, which is ironic because the name of the presbytery that I am in is Anselm Presbytery. And I also dedicate this episode to the people of Anselm Presbytery. The pastors, the women, the children, and the men all across the west coast of the United States and into Alaska and the Philippines. This is to all of you. We'll do a little bio on the namesake of our presbytery. So, Anselm, as you'll see in that quote, which I'll read it to you again, he kind of has this way with words that's very philosophical. You have to read Anselm's quotes in his writings multiple times to follow it. I do not seek to understand that I may believe, but believe that I might understand. For this too I believe, since, unless I first believe, I shall not understand. So Anselm was a big believer in the fact that faith doesn't originate from knowledge necessarily, but that our rational mind and knowledge and understanding can increase our faith. So he was a very profound philosopher in church history. People plot him kind of right in between, both in history and in prominence, St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas.
Is he one of the doctors of the church? Like,
he is a doctor of the church.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a pretty
He
very esteemed title.
He's accredited with starting scholasticism.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, the guy, which people would often say Aquinas would be, in some ways, a father of that as well. And so Anselm is just kind of doing his own thing in the 11th century, and super intelligent. And then he has some other really cool character traits that I was really pleased to read about that I think that you guys will enjoy. He was proclaimed a doctor of the church by a papal bull of Pope Clement XI in 1720. If you're coming from the Protestant tradition, a doctor of the church may be an unfamiliar title, but it's basically it's an honorific title given to people who have made a significant contribution to theology or doctrine. And Anselm is definitely that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about his early life, and then we will dive into some of his work. So Anselm was born in Upper Burgundy, which had been part of the Carolingian dynasty at one point. Burgundy, if you look up a map of where that area is, you're basically looking at France. And then you've got Normandy as well. If you want to look up Normandy, that's going to be an important area in our studies today. And so both of these areas are in France, and I think they may be separated by the Alps because he has to cross the Alps to get to Normandy, I believe. Anyway, so he's born in Upper Burgundy, and he was born into a wealthy family. His father, Gundulf, was a noble, and his mother Ermenberg was the granddaughter of Conrad the Peaceful, who had been the king of Burgundy. So he's in this kind of quasi-royal family that is very wealthy. And I was reflecting on this earlier. It's really astonishing how many people in church history that end up being really prominent and also end up as monks come from really wealthy families where their Christianity is not necessarily looked upon favorably, and they're really pious from a young age. I'm thinking about Francis and Benedict. They're both like this. I'm sure there's others, but
Anthony
it seems like,
of the Desert came from a
oh
really
yeah.
wealthy family.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Um, yeah, it's a really common theme. Guys just 'cause they grow up in this wealth, but they start off pious, and then maybe their piety is kind of tamped down, and they go through a kind of a rebellious phase, and then they come back to it. Um, so anyway, that was his story, and he wanted to enter into monastic life at the age of 15, but his dad didn't want him to. And so the abbot of the monastery that he wanted to join refused him. And for clarity, when we're talking about, because we'll talk about monastery life a little bit on this episode, the abbot of the monastery was basically the ruler of the monastery. And in a Benedictine monastery, where you're following the rule of Benedict, part of living under Benedictine rule was you have an abbot who is basically the father figure and ruler of the monastery's life, and everybody in the monastery needs to obey him, and he also has to provide for the needs of everyone in the monastery as well. And then you also have what's called a prior, which, as best I can tell, is like the second in command in monastic life, and that'll come into our story as well. So after he doesn't get to join the monastery at 15, he gets sick for a while, possibly just from like plain old heart sickness, like really bummed he didn't get to join the monastery. So he gets really depressed. And then he ends up living a carefree life for a while.
Classic
Yep.
prodigal phase before the holiness of God catches up with him.
That's right. Yes. A few years later, his mom dies giving birth to his youngest sister. And then his dad is like, "Oh, I haven't been living right. I'm going to go join the monastery."
Yep.
Rubbing it in, man.
Which kind of just seems to make him, I don't know, I'm reading between the lines here, but it almost seems like he like kind of loses his mind at this of just like, okay. So at age 23, he leaves home, he crosses the Alps, and he wanders. I think he had like one attendant to his name. I think he still had his wealth at this point. So he's traveling with one servant, and he wanders around Burgundy in France for 3 years. He had a fellow countryman named Lanfranc, who was a prior, so that second in command, at the Benedictine Abbey of Bec, which is in Normandy. I wanted to give just a quick little bio of Bec. This is from Wikipedia. The abbey's construction began in 1034 and continued through 1035. Further lands were added through 1040. Saint Herluin was a Norman knight who in about 1031 left the court of Gilbert, Count of Brion, to devote himself to a life of religion. The commune of Lebec-Herluin preserves his name. 136 monks made their profession while Herluin was in charge. It is located in Lebec-Herluin, Normandy, France, and was the most influential abbey of the 12th century Anglo-Norman kingdom. So Bec Abbey is essentially a Benedictine abbey where a warrior monk started the work. So he left the warrior lifestyle and decided to join he starts this monastery. And then Bec ends up being, when you think about like a Ivy League institution or like a seminary, Bec ends up being kind of like that in Normandy. This is where a lot of different people are going to come study over the years. I think there's a future pope that's going to study at Beck. Obviously, Anselm is going to study at Beck in the future. So by age 27, he's traveled over, he's visited Beck. He wants to join, but Lanfranc felt like there was a conflict of interest, maybe because he knew him already. And so he sends him to another abbot or some other archbishop. I can't remember which. And that bishop or abbot says, no, you should join Beck. So he joins Beck as a novice or a novitiate at age 27. So
he had a late start.
Yeah, he doesn't enter
Yeah.
into like ministry life until later than usual.
Let that be an encouragement to you all. I find that encouraging.
Yeah.
And he kind of had this like Paul in Arabia season too, where he's like kind of wandering the Alps and wandering Burgundy and France. And this was before he was officially kind of brought into the Abbey, right? So
Yes.
yeah, that's, hey, he's using his single years wisely. So good on him.
Yeah, man. So he's there for, I think, 3 years, and then Lanfranc gets called away by Duke William II to become the abbot of a new abbey that was being built somewhere else. And the other monks at Beck decide to make Anselm the prior in his place, like the second in command. It's a little controversial because of how young he is. He's only 30 years old at this point. But they make him a monk the prior. And then he does some cool things while initially in this role to kind of earn the favor of even those who had opposed him, which is going to be important later in his life. We see that a common theme throughout Anselm's life is he really seems like he understood the dynamics of power and how men deal with each other and even how to win the favor of your opponents. He understood all of these things really well, which you don't always see with clerics in history. Sometimes they don't get those dynamics, or maybe they understand them, but they're opposed to them. But he seemed to understand some of those political realities pretty well. After, I think 15 years later, he becomes the abbot after the original abbot dies. I think it was still Herluin, the warrior monk, who had started it. So Herluin dies, and now they elect Anselm as the abbot. So now he's no longer number 2 in command. He's number 1 at this Benedictine monastery. And it became a really strong place of learning for all of Europe. So people from France and Italy and elsewhere would come and learn here. It is while he's here that he wrote 2 of his most important works, the Monologion and the Proslogion. He also composed a series of dialogues on the nature of truth, free will, and the fall of Satan, which is super interesting. I want to look that one up. I think now would be as good a time as any to talk about Anselm's ontological argument for God. If you look up Anselm, like on YouTube or Google him, you'll find a lot of people talking about Anselm's ontological argument. And if you've ever taken philosophy in college or studied philosophy at a higher level, you may have encountered this. It's a highly discussed topic in philosophical circles and also in apologetic circles as a proof for God's existence.
All the apologetic bros are like the cross reference right now.
Yeah.
They said our word.
I'm probably, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm probably gonna like disappoint the our apologetic fans and our philosopher fans because I I am not a philosopher, and it, I think even this ontological argument that I'm going to lay out here is a little bit challenging for me, to be honest. Um, Gavin Ortland has a YouTube video on it that I just only pulled one thing out of, but I could tell that it was a really solid um, uh, video of his. So I'd recommend going and checking that out. I trust him to unpack this well. But um, so the argument basically goes like this: if it is possible that God exists, then it follows logically that God does exist. Now, this is an ontological argument. So, ontology is the study of the nature of being and existence. And so, I'm going to walk you through one description of how this works. I did find this particular description on a channel belonging to William Lane Craig, who I do not recommend. I I've been increasingly disappointed with his work recently. However, this wasn't necessarily Lane Craig who laid this out, but you could tell whoever laid out this argument was a follower of his because they use the language of possible worlds a lot, which is something that Lane Craig does. He talks about apologetics from a kind of like a multiverse perspective sometimes. But anyway, all that to say, um, if we can define God as a maximally great being, if there were anything greater, then that being would be God. So, like the thing in all of creation or outside of creation that is all powerful, all knowing, and morally perfect, if there was anything that had more of those qualities than this thing, then that thing would by necessity be greater, it would by necessity be God. That's what we're talking about. And you can use your mind to think about things that could exist in a possible world, but not necessarily the actual world. And an example of that would be like a unicorn, right?
Mhm.
Like we know unicorns aren't real, but it's extremely plausible to imagine a possible world logically where a unicorn exists, a horse with a horn on its head that also has wings and can fly, like, or maybe that'd be Pegasus or a cross. Anyway,
My
those things
horn
aren't
can pierce the sky.
those things are plausible, right? An example of something that couldn't exist even in another possible world would be a married bachelor. Like
Mhm.
by definition, those things are uh, opposed to each
A
other.
two-sided triangle.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So if it's possible that a maximally great being exists, then we can say that he exists in some possible world. And a maximally great being would not be maximally great if he only existed in some possible world. If a maximally great being exists in every possible world, then he exists in the actual world. So this argument against an atheist and against atheism is important because an atheist must now defend not only that God doesn't exist, but that it is impossible that God can exist. So it's an important argument in the grand scheme of philosophy and apologetics. Um, Basically, uh, Anselm's argument could be boiled down to he basically says like if you can imagine that God exists, then you're a literal fool to not believe that he does actually exist. Um, Another way to lay it out would be this. So this is a little bit more true to his actual formula. And this might make your brain spin, but again, some of our other listeners are probably going to enjoy this. It is a conceptual truth, or so to speak, true by definition, that God is a being than which none greater can be imagined. That is the greatest possible being that can be imagined. Number two, God exists as an idea in the mind. Number three, a being that exists as an idea in the mind and in reality is, other things being equal, greater than a being that exists only as an idea in the mind. Number four, thus, if God exists only as an idea in the mind, then we can imagine something that is greater than God, that is the greatest possible being that does exist. Number 5, but we cannot imagine something that is greater than God, for it is a contradiction to suppose that we can imagine a being greater than the greatest possible being that can be imagined. Number 6, therefore, God exists. If this feels confusing, I think what was helpful for me, because this was confusing for me, is comparing it to the moral argument for God, which you might be more familiar with, which is essentially if the argument that the existence of evil is actually a proof of God's existence, because you can't have darkness without light. You can't know that darkness is a thing. You can't without light. You can't know that evil is a thing objectively without there also being an objective good. You can't know that transgression of law is a real thing unless you have objectively a lawgiver. Matthew Levering says, God made our minds to know him. Inscribed in our very rationality is the reality that even to think that God does not exist is a contradiction in terms, a sheer absurdity, once one realizes what God means. Gavin Ortland put it, I'm paraphrasing him, but he basically says, just as the moral argument for God impresses itself upon us from a moral level, so the ontological argument for God impresses us on a rational level. So,
Okay, I think that took a lot for me to. I think you explained it really well, but I was just like, man, this is why this is called church history for chumps. Because
Dude,
I think like
oh, yeah.
how I would regurgitate that to try to like process it myself is a telltale sign that God has made humans to follow a law of morality is that even in completely untouched by Christian cultures, they still establish laws and customs and rules because we are made for order. And in that same way, even in cultures that have not been affected by Christianity, which follows monotheism, there is still an appropriation of a divine, of a supernatural. Like there's always a God. There's always something that is transcendent that they center their lives around. So it's like there's because our minds can formulate it, we as humans have to project it, which means that there is something there. It's not enough to say there's no law. It's not enough to say there is no God. This is interesting. I feel really smart right now.
I'm gonna level with everybody here. I have been familiar with this argument for years, and I still don't get it. I get it philosophically. I think the nice thing about the ontological argument is that it exists by itself. It's its own thought exercise. It doesn't require any rebuttals
presuppositions.
It doesn't require any presuppositions. I am very heavily presuppositionalist, so I don't. Yeah, thank you, James White, for influencing a young Taylor in that. I do appreciate how this argument can sort of just float and hang on its own. I still don't really get it. I wouldn't use it. But
I mean, so there's critics even in the modern or in the contemporaries of his critique him for basically saying like, well, you just made a dangerous jump by going from just because something can be conceived of as an idea that it can also be reality. And there was another monk who I think critiqued him by talking about like the greatest possible like island or something like that. Or a modern example I saw is like the greatest maximal like pizza, like the best pizza of all time. And it's like, well, it breaks down when you start critiquing it. It breaks down because the subject of Anselm's inquiry here is God, not a pizza, not an island.
Yeah, those are all subjective. They hold subjective value. God is.
What's fascinating though is I could see some homie being motivated by being able I think this is not very Western. I think this is more of an Eastern thought. Totally motivated to be like, I want to find or, make the greatest pizza.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's helping me understand it a little more of like, if I can fathom it, I know it can be real.
Right.
Right.
And it
Now
seems to
the
lean
island is
really
a little bit out of your control, right? But the pizza's not out of your control.
well, and it leans into God's immateriality. Like it's, what's the best pizza? Is it the deepest dish pizza? Is it the thinnest crust pizza? Like all those things are subjective. It's a material thing with subjective versions of what value is.
Yeah.
But a
You
perfect
can make it
God,
better by adding more pepperoni.
exactly. But a perfect God who exists within an ordered universe that he has designed is not subject to subjectivity. He is perfectly everything that he is, despite what his created beings think about how thin his pepperoni is.
I think the most
I feel very
fascinating
smart
part
right
is,
now.
dude, Anselm
Big
must
brain
have done
hour.
a lot of thinking while he was a wandering vagrant. Like,
This is why every 24-year-old should just walk around outside for 3 years with a backpack.
Right.
Just do what Forrest Gump did. Just go running for 2 years.
Yeah, find me, John, or Tommy on your journey. We'll buy you food and some new shoes.
Yeah.
Send you back on your way.
Remind you how to socialize.
But keep going.
That's right. Yeah.
Dude, LM's gonna knock on your door 3 years from now.
Remember me?
I took your advice, John.
You're like, come here.
Thomas
Yeah.
Thomas doxed your house location one time in an episode, and I wrote it down.
Right.
He likes Lakeside Park. It's like,
Yeah.
still gotta
Anyway,
look for listeners whenever I take my walks.
I don't want to jump ahead, but tell me if I'm jumping ahead. So Anselm had the ontological argument as probably his greatest contribution. That's like attached to his name, right? But theologically, what I find more interesting is he's kind of known as like the father of penal substitutionary atonement.
Yeah, his satisfaction theory of the atonement is one of his more notable works.
And that's not exactly penal substitution, right? Like they're kind of interconnected, but not exactly one to one.
It's different. I think.
No, it's upriver of it for sure.
It's the grandfather.
We sing it
Yeah,
every Sunday when we sing "The Wrath of God was satisfied."
You can thank Papa Anselm.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm going to talk in a little bit about another work of his, Why God Became Man. Something that's worth noting is Anselm was like very influenced by Augustine, which is probably another reason why modern Reformed folks like randomly like Anselm because they also really like Augustine.
Yeah, they don't like anybody else in Anselm's world.
Yeah, you read Anselm and you're gonna hear. I mean, it's the same kind of type of mind and work as Augustine and Calvin. So people like him. So what's going to end up happening is that in 1066, there's a Norman conquest of England. And so the Normans, which is basically where he's from, now are in control of England. And the Norman lords had given his abbey a bunch of land across the English Channel over there in England. And so he's traveling back and forth from time to time across the channel to go check out these properties and to do his work over there in England as well. I think they're building maybe another monastery over there. And he would also go visit his old friend Lanfranc. Remember the previous prior or the previous prior of the abbey, who is now the Archbishop of Canterbury as of 1070. So he's respected by William I, who is the kind of the king at this time. And then William dies, and we find King William II, who's going to play prominently in the rest of the story. He was also called William Rufus. I think that's what I'm going to call him through the rest of the story. Uh, William Rufus is king when Lanfranc dies. And everybody kind of expected that Anselm was going to be the next Archbishop of Canterbury. But William Rufus says, well, I'm not going to appoint a successor. And I'm going to take the sea's land for myself. So this is around the time of the investiture controversy, which have we done an episode on that? If we referenced it?
I don't think
At
so.
this time in church history, I can't even fully wrap my mind around it. I haven't fully studied it, but basically there's lots of debate going on over like who has the authority to consecrate bishops and kings and vice versa. Like what's the relationship between church and state when it comes to offices of the church and the state? Yeah, Anselm's your boy, I think, Taylor, when it comes to this stuff. Anselm completely stands on business from like this time onward over not letting the state get away with overreach into the church, and Anselm wins like every time. Despite
I mean,
this,
dude, this time it was such a mess, though, that I don't even think like a hard-line Christian nationalist is gonna look at what Rome was doing and be like, yeah, that's probably how that should go.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that it was necessarily. I mean, reading it from Anselm's perspective, Anselm was doing some really important work of like protecting Rome's authority over against the state's authority. Um, and it wasn't even so much he's just like, no, like the Pope, what the Pope says goes. Like, no, he was protecting he wanted the church to be able to enforce canon law, and to be able to have the authority to um, rule over matters of church life, spiritual life.
Right. But then at the same token, Rome is like playing a role in who gets to become king.
Um, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's complex.
Yeah.
That controversy is super complex. Um, but yeah, there's no matter which side you fall on, it's confusing, I think. Um, so anyway, basically he doesn't seize that role, even though everybody kind of wanted him to do it. And we find William Rufus at one time pledges that nobody would ever sit at Canterbury while he lived. Basically, he's like, there's no more Archbishop of Canterbury as long as I'm alive. He said that at Christmas one year. And then by March, he got really super sick. And he was like, I think that this is because I'm a sinner. And so he calls Anselm to confess his sins and to administer last rites. And he also gives back the land and the money, and he makes Anselm the Archbishop of Canterbury, or he nominated him. And the cleric, all the other clerics like agree, and they make him the archbishop. And anyway, William Rufus gets better though, and he's going to continue to beef with Anselm a lot more after this. It kind of reads like the Egyptian pharaoh, in the story of the Exodus, where it's like things get bad, and he's like, okay. And then as soon as he's feeling better, he's like, never mind, back to being a jerk. Like that's William Rufus.
Okay.
Anselm didn't want to take the post at first, but eventually he does. And then he, even after he becomes bishop, he continues to have these arguments with William Rufus. And this is, I think it's hilarious. So Rufus wants him to pay this tax. I think that it may have had to do with the First Crusade. And he wanted him to pay him 1,000 £1,000, let's just say. And Anselm was like, well, I'll pay you 500. And William Rufus is like basically saying, I made you archbishop. You kind of owe me.
Hmm.
So you're going to need to pay me £1,000. And Anselm's like, actually, not only are we not going to do that counteroffer, we're not doing that, and I'm going to do what I want and enforce canon law, which is what I've been wanting to do, in particular against incestuous marriages, which must have been a problem at the time. And so he kind of like doubles down. He's like, actually, I'm not paying you, and I'm going to do this other thing that you don't want me to do. And he kind of tells William Rufus to nut up or shut up, basically. And Rufus kind of backs down. And then this is a quote from Wikipedia, which I thought was hilarious. Listen to this. When a group of bishops subsequently suggested that William might now settle for the original sum, Anselm replied that he had already given the money to the poor and that he disdained to purchase his master's favor as he would a horse or ass.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's like, oops, sorry, I already took this ransom money and I gave it to the needy and the widows.
Yep. Sorry, offer has expired.
Your blackmail money is off to do the Lord's work.
Yep. And then Rufus is like, well, I hated him before. I hate him now and shall hate him still more hereafter. So this is the situation between the Archbishop of Canterbury and the king. It was at this time that Anselm kind of holes up in Canterbury and starts working on another important work of his, the Cura Deus Homo, which is why God became man. And this is kind of connected to the quote that I read at the beginning, which was that he didn't want to necessarily prove Christian doctrine to allow for faith, but to confirm through logic what was already held in faith. And so this is a quote from Anselm. I have been often and most earnestly requested by many, both personally and by letter, that I would hand down in writing the proofs of a certain doctrine of our faith, which I am accustomed to give to inquirers, for they say that these proofs gratify them and are considered sufficient. This they ask, not for the sake of attaining to faith by means of reason, but that they may be gladdened by understanding and meditating on those things which they believe, and that as far as possible they may be always ready to convince anyone who demands of them a reason of that hope which is in us. So it seems like Anselm understands God gave him a mind that can kind of unpack philosophical and theological issues honestly, like kind of like geometry proofs. He's giving proofs for God's existence. He's giving proofs for, the incarnation, why these things had to be. But he's like, I'm not doing this so that people can just feel smarter. I'm doing this to increase the faith of those who are inquiring, and also so that they would be able to give an answer to those who inquires, basically for apologetics.
Anselm seems to be a good kind of rebuttal to the argument that the church kind of went through this dark ages period, and it was just a bunch of peasants, and there weren't really any theological breakthroughs, and the church was totally enmeshed with the government in ways that made it corrupt and kind of flaccid. I think this is a perfect example that idolatry, cultural idolatry was being called out. Apologetics was developing, theological theories of atonement were developing, and Anselm was doing so while engaging the higher ups and engaging the conflicts of this time. So yeah, I think he's a good indicator that the church wasn't asleep at the wheel during this time in history at all.
Yep.
You know what's crazy? We haven't pointed it out yet, but Anselm is doing all of this like literally while the Crusades are going on.
I was wondering about that little overlap.
Yeah. No, I mean, but it just goes to show that the world is so big that there's all this other stuff going on, and like everything that we just did a massive series on is happening while everything Tommy just talked about is
exactly
happening.
Yeah, so he was appointed as Archbishop of Canterbury in 1093, which would have been 2 years before Pope Urban's sermon at at Claremont. So
Yeah.
yeah, everything's happening.
That's right.
So, speaking of Urban, one of the jobs of the Pope, and this was kind of just a long-standing tradition in the church, was that the Pope was supposed to issue what's called the pallium. You've just got to Google this to see what it looks like. It's part of like an archbishop's robes or something he wears over his robes that signifies his office. And this piece of clerical dress was supposed to come directly from Rome, and they attributed a lot of significance to it as far as like church office went. Um, so for whatever reason, like William constantly stonewalled Anselm on this, and so in 1095, Anselm was like, I have to travel to Rome to get this pallium. Like, it's what archbishops do. I'm going to Rome to do this. And William's like, no, you're not. And so they have this council. And the reason why William was stonewalling him is because he constantly wanted to like place himself over like the church or over the archbishop. He's like, you serve me, not the other way around. And so he's always trying to find any way to kind of like edge some authority over Anselm. And so they eventually send this guy named Walter secretly to go get the pallium. And they want, I think what was going on here is that William Rufus is like, you go get the pallium and then you bring it back to me and then I'll give it to him when I'm ready. Or like, when he kind of bows the knee to me, I'll give it to him. So they do that. And Walter goes and he gets the pallium and he he gets back and uh, William the other thing that William does is he acknowledges Urban as Pope. So remember, I think Taylor talked about this. There's like the Pope and the anti-Pope at this time. So there's some controversy about who's the real Pope. William's like, I'll acknowledge Urban as Pope as long as he gives you the pallium. So he gets back. William says that Urban's the Pope, and then Walter like doesn't do what William wants, which is to help depose Anselm. So now William, he's got the pallium now, and he's like, okay, does anyone want to buy it? Basically
Oh my
like,
gosh.
like I'll make you the archbishop if you buy it. Nobody tries to buy it. Then he tries to get Anselm to pay for it, which Anselm refuses to do. And then he's like, okay, well, I'll give it to you, but like I'm gonna bestow it to you. So come on over to my house.
Mm.
I'll bestow this, your office upon you. And Anselm's like, nope, I'm not doing that either. So eventually, finally, the pallium shows up, just laid on the altar at Canterbury, and Anselm gets it. So again, Anselm gets his way by just having that dog in him and being like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not
Mm.
doing what you said. So, eventually I'm going to have to speed through some of this. Anselm gets exiled, by William eventually, and he goes and he spends time in Rome. And while he's in Rome, he's working side by side with Urban, and Urban commissions him to prepare a defense of the Western doctrine of the procession of the Holy Spirit against representatives of the Greek church. So
Mm.
remember, at this time in history, this is around the time of the Great Schism, and they're trying to figure out, how do we keep the church together? And Anselm is like kind of a foremost scholar of the time. So Pope Urban is like, well, I want you to write a defense of the procession of the Holy Spirit from the Father and the
Oh,
Son.
so he's basically asking for a defense of
Filioque.
the filioque. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so he does that. He attends the Council of Bari, where he gives the defense for the filioque and the use of unleavened bread in the Eucharist before 185 bishops.
Dude,
And
Urban tapped his. I did not know that happened.
yeah,
So Urban tapped his top dog, basically.
he did. Yep. Yeah,
Wow.
he was the big guns for this conversation. Um, and Anselm's arguments on the topic, I think, can be found in his writings, the De Processione Spiritus Sancti. So you have some important work being done there concerning the filioque, which is really cool. I hadn't known that prior either. Now there's a new king in England, Henry the First, and in on Michaelmas in 1102, Anselm was finally able to convene a general church council at London, establishing the Gregorian reform in the church. So I think as long as Anselm had been archbishop, he always wanted to be to establish this reform in the church, kind of societal reform, and he never could do it because of the beefs with Rufus. And then a new king comes in and invites him back. So Henry the First invites him back, and he let's see here. The council that he called prohibited marriage, concubinage, and drunkenness to all of those in holy orders, and it condemned sodomy and simony. Simony is the selling of clerical offices, and it also regulated clerical dress. Anselm also obtained a resolution against the British slave trade. And Henry supported Anselm's reforms and his authority over the English church, but continued to try to assert his own authority over Anselm. So these reforms that he was doing were mainly concerning, here's how priests are going to have to act in this ecclesiastical see. After that, he ends up getting exiled again. And let's see here. He gets his way in 1107. There's finally an agreement between the king and the archbishop. It's called the Concordat of London. Henry formally renounced, I'm reading from Wikipedia again, Henry formally renounced the right of English kings to invest the bishops of the church. So Henry's like, English kings aren't going to have to do with making bishops anymore. The remaining 2 years of Anselm's life were spent in the duties of his archbishopric. He, without getting into the details of how he did it, he basically gets the Archbishop of York to come under the authority of the Archbishop of Canterbury. And from his deathbed, Anselm anathematized all who failed to recognize Canterbury's primacy over all the English church.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. And as he was on his deathbed, he also announced himself content, except that he had a treatise in mind on the origin of the soul, and did not know once he was gone if another was likely to compose it. So I love that. He's like dying. He's like, I actually had something else I wanted to write about, but I didn't.
He's like, I'm actually really upset about this.
Yeah. He
Oh,
died
man.
on Holy Wednesday, 21st of April, 1109, and his remains were translated to Canterbury Cathedral and laid at the head of his old friend Lanfranc.
Wow, man. So the dude's rap sheet is pretty extensive. Like, there's the ontological arguments, there's the theological contributions, but even just like on a political level, like, one, he, contended a lot with the investiture controversy, but he also seems to really contribute to the status that the Archbishop of Canterbury has, which even in the Anglican Church today, I mean, a lot of Anglicans rightfully don't acknowledge the Archbishop of Canterbury, but historically, it's a very significant role in the English
Yeah,
Church.
I'd be really curious to hear, like, maybe even our boy Ben Lansing to talk about, like, did this kind of like lay some groundwork in England
It makes me
that
wonder. Yeah.
led to the ability of the English church to do its own thing later on with Anglicanism? I'd be
Because
curious.
we're still 400 years away from the Reformation, which is crazy. But I mean, shoot, I think you could argue that even stuff like the investiture controversy, like this constant kind of squabbling between the magistrate and the church clerics is going to be a contributing factor to even the English Reformation specifically. So, the seeds for the Reformation basically started probably at Pentecost. So, write that down,
Yeah.
kids. Did you like that, Taylor?
That was a good one, bro.
Thanks, man.
That was good.
All right, shoot. Well, dude, Awesome stuff. I found a quote that I loved from Anselm that I want to read. It's off of Goodreads, so well, I mean, I think that's pretty legit. But it's from Proslogion, which is one of the texts that Thomas referenced, and it's come now, insignificant man, fly for a moment from your affairs, escape for a little while from the tumult of your thoughts, put aside now your weighty cares, and leave your wearisome toils, abandon yourself for a little to God, and rest for a little in Him. And I'm just like, oh, what a sweet little like, you know. One thing I love about a lot of these authors is they can write really heavy theological treatises and all that, but they can also just write with such devotional like affection, which I think is so beautiful. So shout out.
Tommy said something. Tommy said something great earlier, which is like the why we do this. And Anselm, the greats do this not for the pursuit of the academy, but to build up the church.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Anselm was one of the greats, and Tommy's one of the greats for building up the church through this podcast
and building up the podcast through the church.
Yes.
That feels bad.
So don't forget, buy me a coffee. The links in the episode details.
Yes.
No, yeah. Man. Well, it's not goodbye, it's see you later, right, Thomas?
That's right.
We also live in the same city, so it's not like we're it's not like we're too far.
It might
off.
make us get together more often though, because like John said at the beginning of the episode, I mean, we used to see each other like 4 times a week,
all
and
the
for
time,
hours at a
bro.
time,
Yeah.
and like now these days we only see each other on
Holy
Riverside
days.
recording studio.
Yeah, pretty
Holy
much.
days,
Yeah. So yeah, well, I agree. Well, gang, thank you guys all for listening. Thomas, great episode, sir. Thank you. Yeah, leave us a comment. Make sure you subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe. Follow us on. Oh, dude, we also hit 1,000 followers on Spotify like a month ago. Forgot to talk about it, and we still have to do a Discord party.
We owe them this Discord party. We'll do it this summer. You have our word.
Yeah,
I'll join for that. We still need to do
yeah.
our Age of Empires.
Dude, Jackson put me on to that
Civ.
Oh, Crusader Kings 3. Yeah, I saw his comment about that.
It's on sale.
Have you been playing it?
No, dude, I don't know.
Dude,
it looks
like,
cool though.
This game, I've got a buddy who plays it a lot. My buddy Nick plays it a ton. I played it for a little bit. It is an investment of time.
See,
like,
that's the problem with these historical
It's one of those games where you spend more time with it paused, just trying to wrap your mind around everything that's happening.
Yeah.
Than you do playing. So if you like strategy, it's really fun.
But that sounds awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, bro, it's like $15 right now.
I know, it's spring sale, man. Spring sale.
Or you could get all the DLC and the game for $32.
Or we could just play Gang Beasts again. So, I don't know. That's a fun game. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for listening. We will talk to you again next week. Actually, maybe Friday. We'll see. All right. Talk to you later.
God bless you.
Bye-bye.